So this time we're going to be dealing with flowers, which are a bit more complex because they've got more shapes to them. This one's a rounded sort of dish-shaped flower, a cup shape if you like. If you look at it face on, it's fairly round. The width is the same height, it's the same as the height, yeah. But as we start to rotate it, the height stays the same and the width narrows, just as it did in the leaf. As we turn it away from us, the height's the same and the width's narrower. As we turn it around, it changes, and all the way back round again. The height's still the same. Marginal difference when it's further away, and the width is narrower. And we can see inside of the flower here at perspective. I'm looking at the angle it's sitting at, and we're going to measure the width and the height to draw a perspective drawing of it. So as we did with before, so we go for an angle, something like this. We'll measure the height, which is about 7.5, by the width, holding the ruler at the same distance as about 4.5. So just like last time, we look at the angle. It's about there. And draw a box, approximately 7.5. I think I said 4.5 there, 5.5, 4.5. Then within that, we have an ellipse. Bring the flower back. You can see this area here. Look at the geometric shapes. This is the ellipse, and then we've got the back of the petals there. So the ellipse is going to be a rough inside the box, and the back is approximately there. We also have a centre. Now that needs to be in the centre are the reproductive parts, which are going to come through here. And the whole thing is a series of circles, really. And through that centre, the stem. We'll just put the line in for where a stem is. It's a bit narrower than that. We can measure that distance as well here. So what we're looking at here is the geometry. It's going to be a rough inside the box, and the back is approximately there. We also have a centre. Now that needs to be in the centre are the reproductive parts, which are going to come through here. And the whole thing is a series of circles, really. And through that centre, the stem. We'll just put the line in for where a stem is. It's a bit narrower than that. We can measure that distance as well here. So as was the case with the leaf, the measuring of a flower, like the hellebore, if we look at it front on, we get a dimension like this. It's more or less circular, and we've got the centre parts there. If we tilt it slightly to the side, it's the same height but the width narrows. And if we turn it to the side, it's the same height, but the width narrows further, and we just get a profile view of it. Also, the centre point remains in the same place as we tilt it to the side, as does the area where the reproductive parts are. We also have a line through that follows right through the centre with those reproductive marks on all of them. It's in the same place. And that's the same with all flowers, regardless of the shape, really. A bit more complicated with some, but the basic pattern is the same. So say we have a tubular face shaped flower, like a campanula of some type, a bell flower. So we turn it to the side. We've got the front view. It looks like a circle again. It could be sort of star shaped or whatever, but from the side we turn it to that sort of ellipse view, but it could be a long tubular flower like this, and we see the ellipse is there, but the centre point is the same and the stem will come off it here. Reproductive parts will be inside, but you wouldn't see them at that angle. And if we turn it to the side, we just get a flat profile view of it like that. So again, the height remains the same and the width changes. Here, a disc-shaped flower, I've drawn it the other way around, but the width is the same on all three. So if you rotate it down to the side, it's got a disc in the centre that stands up like a daisy. Some of these actually point down as well, like a rudbeckia, so they could be pointing down, but the same thing applies. It's the same width on all three, and it's this that changes, this distance here. So that's the basic format. Now if that was something like a more complicated flower, like a daffodil, for example, a daffodil has another centre in it. So you would get the tubular part inside, it sits in the centre, something like that. It just comes out of the middle. So you see it's all connected in the same way. Now I've got bilateral flowers like orchids and things that you can splice down the middle, and there's obviously things coming forward and bending and curving that complicate things, but that's essentially how the perspective works. One dimension changes and the other one doesn't. And plotted that in a box, just the same way as I did a leaf here. And as you turn it around, rotate it around, then that depth will get deeper. So on this one, it's about 50 millimeters. So plot the box in and then look at the angle of the curve. We've got an ellipse here. And we've got the sort of bowl-shaped area here. We've got the centre, which follows right through to the stem and to the reproductive parts. And then inside, we've got the stamens surrounding the stigma. There's also a ring of nectaries in there as well. So all of those ellipses are the same. And this one's just a slightly deeper ellipse. So it's that, the shallower view on the top here. The ellipse is more round than this one on the reproductive parts. Goes right down to the base, and then we've got the second ellipse for the nectaries, and that centre follows right through to the centre of the stem. Principle's the same. So from there we can start to plot in the petals and various different parts of the flower. Now we know that the flower has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. So we have to get those 5 petals in, and we can draw in the lines, got these sort of curved lines because the petals are curving around there, if you look at the contours on it. So we can draw those in. There's one just above where the 1, 2, this one's sort of at the side, 3, 4, and we've got this one curving over on this edge here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the nectaries in the centre there. You can't see them, but you can see the anthers stamens and the stigma in the centre. And this one, you can see part of the nectaries in this one because this one's at a slightly more rounded angle like that. And again, we're just plotting where those petals are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And drawing the shapes of the petals, like so. And from there, we can start to fill in all the details then. We've got the basic pattern for the flower. Now, you might find it easy to take a piece of tracing paper over the top of that and draw the flower onto the tracing paper, using that just as a guideline. So you can just draw in where the petals are as opposed to drawing in, having all those working lines that might confuse you. So we know the petals are going to be here because we've already plotted them. And we know, I'm just going to make a rough mark where that is. And we know that the stem is there. So we can take that away with a shape like that then and start to build in the details on it with the petals until we get a finished line drawing. Don't worry about having lots of working lines, that doesn't really matter. And I also like to kind of draw in the overlaps because there's quite often you can see through them with the light passes through the back. So here we'll start to get the anthers showing. I'm not going to draw them in as double lines yet. There's a stigma coming out the middle. You can't really see very much of that. It lines up with that stem. Need to make that stem thicker. And it joins with a leaflet there, but I'm not going to bother with that just now. We'll deal with things like that later. And carry on putting in all these parts, and that will give me a rough template to transfer to a sheet of paper to draw it out properly. But we know all of these parts are going down here and connecting up. We can't see the nectaries. That's about as much as I need really for my basic outline drawing. I can transfer that now onto paper and draw it out properly. So we've gone through a process whereby we've done the same thing as we did with the leaf in many ways, but it's a more complicated shape. It's a sort of bowl shaped, it's a three-dimensional shape. And we've broken it down into geometric shapes, first by measuring and boxing in the whole thing, then by drawing ellipses and the shape of that sort of bowl for the centre parts as well as the outer petal parts. And then we've plotted in the petals, the 5 petals, and then we've traced it onto tracing paper, and we can transfer that onto paper now and draw it properly.